Winston Churchill, the lion who refused to surrender. In a world torn apart by war and fear, when nations trembled and darkness was winning, there stood one man who refused to bow down. A man who spoke with fire, fought with wisdom, and carried the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders. Thunder strikes, screen fades to a young boy sitting alone in a huge classroom. Winston Churchill was born inside a palace, but he never felt like a prince. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, barely spoke to him. His mother, Jenny, was too busy living a glamorous social life. Winston grew up feeling invisible. A teacher slams a book. Teacher. Mr. Churchill. Wrong again. You will never be anything great. Little Winston wasn't the smartest. He couldn't sit still. His handwriting was terrible. Teachers called him stupid. Lazy. A boy without future. At night, he cried alone, writing letters to a mother who rarely replied. But inside this lonely boy burned a fire no teacher could see. At age 12, Winston made a promise to himself. One day, they will listen to me. He studied harder, spoke clearer, thought deeper. He discovered the magic of words, and how words could move nations. His speech teacher once asked, Teacher, you want to lead Britain? With that stutter? Winston, I will practice until I cannot fail. And he did. Before becoming a leader, Winston became a soldier. India, Sudan, South Africa. He chased danger, bullets, and death, not for glory, but for purpose. He wrote every night, turning his war experiences into books. Books turned into fame. Fame turned into political power. He entered politics young, confident, unshakable. But destiny wasn't done testing him. Winston warned Britain that Germany was preparing for war. He begged the government to take Hitler seriously. But the leaders laughed. Newspapers mocked him. He was pushed out of politics, alone, humiliated. Most men break when the world rejects them. Churchill sharpened his sword in silence. He spent years reading, researching, preparing for a future no one believed in. Until the world realized he was right. Hitler's army crushed Europe's city after city. Countries surrendered. Soldiers surrendered. Hope surrendered. Britain stood alone. And the same man they once mocked became their only hope. Churchill stood in front of trembling leaders and said, Winston, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. But we shall fight. We shall never surrender. Crowd cheering, bombs exploding. Churchill's footsteps echoing in underground tunnels. When bombs fell on London, Churchill didn't hide in safety. He walked the streets. He visited the ruins. He held the hands of crying mothers. And he told his people, Stand firm. The world depends on you. Soldiers found courage. Mothers found strength. A nation found its lion. A map of Europe glows red as Nazi forces spread across the continent. Hitler's war machine was unstoppable. One by one, mighty nations collapsed. France fell. Belgium fell. Poland fell. The world whispered only one thing. Britain is next. In the parliament, British politicians debated surrender. Some leaders said, Politician nervous voice. Germany is too powerful. Negotiating might save lives. Churchill slammed his hand on the table. Churchill. When life is threatened by tyranny, surrender is not peace, it is slavery. He walked into Parliament and delivered one of the greatest speeches in history. Churchill. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender. Explosion, city in darkness, but the British spirit wakes up. And in that moment, a dying nation came back to life. Bomb sirens scream. Families rush into underground shelters. Hitler believed he could destroy Britain from the air. He rained fire upon London for 57 nights. Children cried. Buildings collapsed. Streets turned to ashes. But every night, Churchill traveled through the ruins, without fear. A mother holding her injured baby once shouted, Mother, why don't you hide underground like the others? Churchill looked her in the eyes. Churchill, if I hide, you lose hope. And if you lose hope, Britain falls. Crowds stood up in silence. People saluted. Soldiers clenched their fists. A leader was not commanding them from a palace. He was standing beside them in the fire. A dark room with military scientists, engineers, strategists. Churchill knew bombs alone wouldn't win the war. Britain needed science, intelligence, innovation. He secretly built radar systems that could detect enemy planes before they reached land. He supported codebreakers at Bletchley Park, brilliant mathematicians who cracked Nazi communication. When the enemy sent orders, Britain was already waiting. The world saw courage. But behind courage was Churchill's brain. Even lions bleed. Churchill fought a lifelong enemy, his depression. He called it the Black Dog. There were nights he couldn't sleep. Days he lost hope. Moments he questioned his life. But every time the Black Dog attacked, Churchill answered with work. He wrote books. He painted. He spent hours designing strategies. The world saw an unbreakable warrior. But inside, he was a man fighting himself, and winning. This is why his courage became legendary. Because true courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing tall despite fear. Ships crossing the Atlantic. A map showing German submarines hunting British supply lines. Britain was strong, but alone. Without help, they would run out of weapons, food, and ships. Churchill had one hope: America. At that time, America did not want to join the war. Their leaders said, "American official, it's not our fight." But Churchill refused to accept defeat. He wrote letters, gave speeches, sent envoys. Then, something changed. The world saw photos of burning British cities. They heard Churchill's words on radio broadcasts. They watched a nation standing alone, refusing to kneel. Slowly, American hearts began to move. President Franklin Roosevelt sent supplies, planes, tanks. And one night, he radioed Churchill a message. Roosevelt, tonight we are with you. The lion was no longer alone.